Hi everyone, thank you for coming. Appreciate your time this afternoon. Hopefully everyone can hear what I'm about to say. Had a few technical issues across the day. So today we're joined a panel. We're discussing, let's see, as the title says, navigating the e-commerce boom and what that entails. So we brought on three kind of specialists. I'll introduce myself. So I'm Seb Bourne, former head of media for HP Europe, and now I'm working for a digital agency called Jolt Media. And I will pass over to you to introduce yourself.
Thank you. My name is Sophie. My background is in luxury fashion. I used to work for Alexander McQueen. I led social strategy for Victoria Beckham and British designer Anya Hindmarch before I went into fashion tech, helped launch Stitch Fix into the UK as its first international market. I then went a slightly different way and set up my own social media consultancy business, working within sportswear, beauty, tech as well. And I'll pass to Roberta.
No. Okay. No. Probably going to have to change the batteries again.
Okay, thank you. So, much better. Hi, guys. I'm Roberta. I'm a senior executive at the intersection of social media partnerships, communications. I have a wide experience in media and initially with PR agencies. So I'll pass it to Liam.
G'day everyone. Thanks for coming down and joining us. My name's Liam. I'm here in, I guess, two guises today. By day, I work at Essence MediaCom. I'm our social operations director there. And by night, I'm the founder with my fantastic wife of Little Sloth. Not to give too much of a sales plug, but just a quick overview. Little Sloth is a rental platform for children's clothes that we are looking to launch. It is a little side project that we're both very passionate about and working on. But yeah, just wanted to give that context as a lot of my answers today will be feeding back from my experiences at Essence MediaCom, where I've worked across clients like Adidas, Dell, Coca-Cola, etc., but also with Little Sloth as well. So I'll pass back over to Seb and we'll get started. Looking forward to running through some questions with you all.
Amazing, cool. Well, thanks again for joining us. So as you can see, we've got a very diverse panel today, and hopefully we'll hear some awesome questions at the end. So I guess to kick it off, so social commerce isn't a new feature for those who are in the vertical, in the industry, as we know. But it has significantly changed over the past couple of years, massively. What I mean by that is that it's forecasted to grow in the next 4 years from 7 to 16 billion pounds. So, you know, a little bit of a chunk of money there for those interested in participating in it, or trying to optimize your campaign to it, or actually just get into it full stop. So for sustainability purposes, I did not print out my notes, hence why I'm reading from the phone, so apologies. Now what I wanted to kind of like bring to everyone's attention here really is some stats. So 56% of people in the UK have used social commerce in the past 6 months. So what that means is that you've been on your TikTok, your Meta, your Instagram, and have purchased something on there, or are using those platforms to either browse through it, gives you some ideas on what else to buy. But what I found more interesting about this stat is that actually more people are actually not only generating revenue back to these streams, because it becomes a lot more, it's a lot easier to purchase straight off these platforms. And what we're going to be discussing today is exactly how these platforms are going about doing so, but also what brands are doing to actually compete in this space, because as you can imagine, it's quite a crowded marketplace now. And just, you can see by the exhibitors, or the back end, or the front end people wanting to, you know, take a piece of this pie, effectively. So I'll kick off with the first question, which is quite a question in itself. How can brands identify and target the most relevant audiences for themselves and for their social commerce initiatives? So let's start on quite now. So I'll pass over to Roberta.
Right. So before we start even talking about targets, I think it's quite important to take a step back and really understand the complexity of social media landscape these days, because I don't know about you, but you read about it like on the news constantly. So we definitely have a few things to consider here. So first of all, we'll hear, I mean, you probably hear it so much these days and today too, AI in social media, that's supposed to grow massively by 30% per annum from 24 to 29. And this is like huge numbers, but the predictions are probably going to be even higher than this. So that's something that we need to consider. That means a lot of things, like, for instance, think about all the deals that have been struck this year, not just with OpenAI itself and all the publishing sectors, but also think about Reddit, for instance, and Google. They struck a $60 million per annum deal just in February, and that's Redditors basically, Reddit giving up all its content to Google to train its AI models. And all of this, it's kind of revolutionary, and we'll see more and more of these deals. Then we have the complexity of AI being integrated more and more with, you hear about this so much more, especially in commerce, AI agents. And that entails, for instance, think about a very example like TikTok Symphony and that everything that's been launched in June, but also think about Genie and all of the AI chatbot that kind of replicates the Philippine taco sort of version into the Western world, and that all of this combined with everything that Zuckerberg has been said about AI agents and all, that will revolutionize pretty much the way that the launch of Llama 3. So there's so much going on, and so much that we should keep into consideration. All of the technology influencing on the politics side, all of the controversy, particularly even Musk these days around everything that's been happening and all of around the elections in the U.S. So very, very complex scenario. So how do you keep up with all of this? It's absolutely crucial that you choose carefully your platform and choose really intentionally where you want to be, also in terms of understanding all of this complexity, and also give more and more attention to everything that is happening when you build your message. So I don't know, probably.
Cool. Thank you very much. Thanks for that context. I think when it comes to identifying audiences or brands at the moment, we're having some really interesting conversations with our clients, and a lot of it is centered around, as Roberta touched on, the rollout of AI and automation. So for a long time, clients have been able to work with their data teams. They're sitting on some really strong insights, as we saw before with that fantastic presentation around Nudi's, one of the brands that streams out, around their first-party data. So there's a lot of signals that they're able to pick up from the back end around sales, etc. And off the back of that, they've then been able to use this to build out segments that they could then roll out into the social platforms. Now, what's been interesting is what we're starting to see from the social platforms themselves, particularly Meta, is a push towards broad audience targeting. This obviously benefits their AI Advantage Plus led solution at the moment. So the feedback that we're getting is step away from these segments, step away from these audiences that you've put time and money to invest in, and trust our algorithm, trust our automation. And that's where, it's a big shift away. Some clients are more comfortable doing it than others. There's a lot of resistance. But also one of the main messages that is coming through is from their side that creative is the new targeting. So when you are looking at, I'll use an example of an internet services provider. It's a product that is relevant to a lot of people. You could go broad with your targeting. You could use your creative to really showcase the different USPs that are on offer. But this approach is not going to be relevant for all brands, is it? there's going to be different kinds of products where you are going to have to lean on that first-party data and that more segmented approach. So this is what's going to be really interesting, I think, to see how clients, agencies, brands, specialists look to challenge these platforms and look to work together, I think, to build out strategies moving forward that are going to factor in these new automated approaches.
No, that's great. Thank you, guys. So I guess this is a very nice segue. You know, we started in macro, so now we're going to deep dive more into the detail here. So obviously we have potentially quite a few agencies and brands here in the audience with us today. So how would you say brands and, I guess, agencies, since social commerce is expanding so rapidly across all these platforms and everyone's trying to catch up effectively, how do you think, or what would you say, brands can do to win in this space?
Yeah, I can take this one, Seb. So my background is more so on the organic side, not so much the paid side. So I've got sort of 4 key points that I want to run through. I think, first of all, it's really about understanding that social commerce doesn't exist in isolation. So you need your awareness, you need somebody to listen to you before you can drive that consideration, get people to lean in before you then can inspire that action and drive that conversion. So I would say that's my first point. The second is, at least for the businesses I've worked for, I've found that brand marketing teams and e-commerce teams often operate in silo. I think that's due to different goals, different KPIs. So really trying to think of KPIs that can drive that full funnel and inspire that internal collaboration is really crucial. Also, I think there's a point on innovation and how can you think about social commerce in a really creative and innovative way. So want to reference a project I worked on during my time at Victoria Beckham, where we knew that, you know, we had this community of people who really wanted access to our founder. We had an affluent audience on Facebook that were willing to spend. So we worked with Meta at the time that they were investing heavily in Facebook Messenger. And we created a chatbot. Essentially, you would message the Victoria Beckham page on Facebook and it would respond as if it were our founder, and she would advise on different products. There were some features where you could like try different sunglasses, accessories on. Again, a really innovative way to think about social commerce that really goes beyond just ads. You know, people chatted to this bot for over 9 minutes, which is sort of crazy stat. And we drove about 30% higher conversion than any email historically did. So, you know, just really thinking outside the box.
No, that's great. And I think, Roberta, I think you might want to add something from your side.
Yeah, if I can build on this, I absolutely agree. And innovation is going to be more and more critical. I think brands that can innovate and do so also keeping into large consideration over trends are going to be definitely ahead of the curve. I think when we think about even the example that Sophie made on chatbots, it's not just imagine that there are like, again, a huge world around AI chatbots. So there are lots of ways that you can integrate those also into your content. There's like, if you take a look also at the digital report by Reuters for 24, and the way news in general are consumed, we'll see more and more fragmentation, diversification, and coming from all sorts of online sources. So think largely video. Don't think just short form video, think also long form, think also live. In all of this, it's also very important. Think when you think chatbot, also think about integrating them with discovery of products. So and that also suggesting in terms of personalization to your audience. So understand exactly who your customers are, what they want to see, how they want to see it. This is true for everything. This is true for commerce, but also for content relevance. Think about angles of a story, angles of a content, because since social search is so fundamental, the more you build on a relevant story, the more you can tackle different angles and different sources from every, I would say, hub and social platform. So that's going to be even more so important in a world where all of this complexity that we mentioned are amplifying the more also every platform is influencing each other and building on each other also in terms of the way they're like the fast-paced environment is actually propelling all of this forward. So I think that's going to be a great advantage.
No, that's great. I mean, there's so many different themes there. I don't even know where to start. So let's just double click quickly on the kind of user-generated content, since obviously there's been quite a few issues recently in the news around, influencers maybe paid to say certain things, they go on a tangent. But I was going to say, as, brand ambassadors or, people that we manage the media for them, how would you kind of like explain to a brand, how does user-generated content play in driving trust and engagement in social commerce? So I'll go to Liam and then Sophie.
Cool. Yeah, so I think when it comes to user-generated content and its ability to drive trust, we were able to see some really interesting results across our client set. So what we're able to do is we were able to analyze over 3,000 campaigns to run across some of our social platforms, and then look at the results. And one of the really key insights and takeaways was the key role that user-generated content and partnership ads play. So what we actually saw was there was a plus 65% increase in action intent with partnership ads across this social platform. Apologies for being vague. It is some agency research. I'm not able to fully go into the detail, but what I can say is the results were really positive, and I think it really spoke to the fact that, like I said, a lot of trust is built around this user-generated content, and we're seeing the role that it's playing across the channels. I mean, when you look at the likes of TikTok, it's continuing to drive that short-form user-generated content, and we're now starting to see this play out in other channels as well. When you look at Meta, the explosion of Reels, it's going absolutely gangbusters. There's a crazy stat floating around at the moment that I think it's on average people are spending around 50 minutes per day with Reels, which is nuts. So it's only going to continue to grow as a placement, and a lot of that is driven by this user-generated content, which, as we said, drives that trust for brands.
And I think so. I guess from a paid perspective, that completely makes sense. So obviously, if there's any creative agents in the room, please take notes. Since coming from a media perspective, it's always a bit of a challenge to get this ad format in. But I'm definitely keen to hear kind of Sophie from a more content-based perspective.
Yeah, I completely agree with Liam's points there, and I think it's this, notion of people really wanting to buy from other people versus brands. We're really seeing that shift. They're really looking for that value for money, that assurance from other people that they're, buying the right thing. So, for example, I worked at Stitch Fix. Stitch Fix in the US was really built on pay-to-play, acquiring customers through paid, and obviously, the way things are moving, it's incredibly expensive to do that way. So what we did when we came to the UK is really starting to test and learn about using different tactics driven by sort of UGC community, and understanding who can be a good advocate for this service. And once we sort of learned that we found this target, middle-aged, just outside of cities, suburban sort of mom, when we started to kind of switch on that button and get them to advocate for our service, it was like magic, because we knew that they were our best advocates, and that was more valuable than any ad we would create for it. So yeah, I think this is hugely important, and I think we're going to really move sort of in the future towards this community-driven commerce that was not so much existent before.
No, that completely makes sense. So, I guess when everyone's kind of looking at your strategies for 2025, since this is that time of the year, something to definitely think about. So I guess it takes me on quite nicely to the next question, which is, okay, so how can businesses or brands integrate kind of social commerce within their overall kind of omni-channel strategy and not just see it as a standalone kind of like tactic. So.
Cool. Yeah, happy to kick off this discussion. Yeah, so I think it's been really interesting to see. I mean, it's why we're all here today, aren't we? The rise and rise of social and social commerce. So I think one of the most interesting things is when I first started working in media, social was a little bit of an add-on to media plans and to campaigns. We still saw a lot of spend going towards traditional channels, as there's been a lot of headlines and research around. And like I said, while we're here today, the investment just continues to surge now into social. So it goes from being the add-on to being, I guess, for some brands, not all, but some, and that's the ones we like the most, but the center of their plans. So, and I think this has led to what I like to call the homogenization of social. So I think a really good example of that, and it's something that's already been touched upon, is social search. I won't go into too much detail here because without ruining what's coming next, that is one of our questions. But one example I will give, and it's something that really fascinating to see where it goes and how it grows, is, and it's a good example of this homogenization, is TikTok out of phone. So for those who are unaware, TikTok have rolled out a recent integration with digital out of home. So what that allows you to do is you can take your UGC or your just standard TikTok assets and creative that you're running on platform, and you can then extend that and buy that programmatically into digital out of home spaces as well. So that's taking what was a very social first approach with a fast growing social channel on TikTok, and then extending that into to out of home to give a nice bit of synergy between the approach. And I think, as we saw with one of the earlier presentations, consistency with messaging, consistency with creative, that is really key. So this is a really nice example of how that can look to happen as well. Now, an add-on to that, and it's something that we've been looking to push for some of our brands, is that digital out of home can then extend and expand into their own retail spaces as well. So if you think about it, if you're a brand, you can then target around, if you're a supermarket brand, for example, you could target digital out of home billboards outside a competitor, which is a little bit cheeky, but could be very effective. And then you could then extend that TikTok creative into your own in-store retail owned assets as well. All potentially featuring, like I said, that UGC to build further trust, to gain that extra reach, and to really drive home more impact and awareness there. So I think that's been quite interesting to see. And on top of that as well, when it comes to this omni-channel approach, we've seen the rise of tech platforms like Smartly. Now, what's been really interesting with a player like Smartly is they are now out in market offering an opportunity where you can essentially identify your target audience. You can set in a budget, you can set a KPI that's relevant to your business, and it will then use its tech and its algorithm in the back end to distribute that budget to the most relevant channel across digital assets. So that's providing a nice example, once again, of more synergy and automation and a more concise omni-channel approach.
No, absolutely. And I think you always have to bring it down to what the KPIs, because I know we kind of touched on it there. We're just kind of retail media, so targeting out of home, digital out of home, around stores. If you're in store, that's one tactic. But now I know this is not the whole theme of the presentation, but retail media is kind of like crossing bound with kind of what we're discussing now. More and more kind of in-store digital billboards are appearing. You can buy these programmatically. You can work with your AV teams or programmatic teams now to go in and buy them and have a complete end-to-end kind of approach when it comes to tactics. So that's definitely something to add to your 2025 strategy. But I think, Roberta, you wanted to add to this.
Yeah, I wanted to add something and build on this, because that's truly interesting what Liam just said. Also, the messaging part, I think it's relevant, because in all of this scenario that we just described, where on one side you have AI in the future, whatever it's going to entail, AI agent and whatever, we'll discover more and more of that, which means pretty much imagine a constant flow of coverage on what's like in exactly what Symphony sets out to be. So it's something like we cover in different languages 24/7, so you can concentrate on more what's creative of your team can concentrate more on creative messages. Combine that with AI chatbot in real time. And if you add that and layer of complexity, which I find fascinating, is like on the other side, you can also have a lot of budgets invested on messaging, and there are great technology platforms like, for instance, Subtext. They are actually great to build up campaigns around messaging. So it could be Q&A, it could be something that you build on a content or an event, and it's also another way that you can integrate very much around different channels. And I think we'll see more and more business actually going back to that and going to that and investing more in that.
No, exactly, and something a lot of people tend to ask the question is like, okay, how do you plan a full funnel kind of omni-channel campaign? I mean, like we said from the start with the basics. Who are the people that you're trying to target ultimately? What is the message that you're trying to get? Is it an upper funnel, mid funnel, or lower funnel type of campaign? And then devise the tactics off the back of that. So great points on that front. So we mentioned obviously social search a couple of times, so we're going to double click on that now because that's a whole kind of universe in itself here. So I'm going to bring on all three of you to kind of talk about it. Now, I guess let's look at it from obviously it's a very important factor from a consumer customer perspective, but when it comes to brands, what should the brands kind of do to kind of like benefit from it in that perspective?
You mean on social search?
On social search.
Well, first of all, consider when you say social search, you say pretty much every platform. So consider that this has been widely extended to TikTok, Instagram. Now you look for news, you look for a product, you look, as also Sophie mentioned, other influencers or people that you can really relate with, and also make sure that whatever you're searching is actually relevant to something that means something to you. So communities again, or people that you follow, also friends or celebrity, or even love brands. And that really can literally mean anything from also searching coming from YouTube or TikTok, Instagram, Pinterest, and you name it. And it's really relevant that these days we concentrate on making sure this message resonates around different social channels. So think thoroughly what type of content you have and how you can reach all these different audiences out there, and also try to be very, very relevant and on point, and make sure that also you interact on relevant searches and relevant trends, so that you can be also on top of these searches when they happen in real time.
No, that's right. Sophie?
Yes, completely agree. This social search numbers are, insane especially when you're looking at younger audiences and how they're searching for things. Completely agree with everything Roberta mentioned. I think where brands often trip up is really the optimization of things. So how are you uploading? What keywords are you using? Are you really considering what people are searching for when you're trying to lead them to your content? I think that's crucial. It's where it makes a difference on TikTok, where there's a piece of content that can be found for years to come if you're really optimizing it in exactly the right way.
No, that's great. And then I guess, Liam, from a pay perspective, what can we do?
Yeah, from a pay perspective, it's once again, it's another really interesting and a hot topic at the moment. A lot of the platforms are going out to market with their narratives. I think personally, one of the most interesting I find is Reddit. So there's a stat, and I promise I haven't made this up. It comes from Google, and it says that for every second in every Google search, there is a Reddit added to the back of it. So that just shows, I think, the power of social search, but also, the role that platforms like Reddit are going to play moving forward in the future. But I think from a pay perspective, a lot of clients are interested in it. We're out there having these discussions, keeping them informed. But at the moment, I think from a paid offering, we're yet to see some really nice insights, some really nice stats, but we're yet to see a really truly developed offering, and that's something that we're being told is going to be coming down the line in 2025. There's a lot of good testing going on, particularly in big markets like the US. The US has the investment, it has the scale as a country. Interesting, but there's a lot of nice insights coming out off the back of that. And I think we're looking forward from an agency perspective on how we can look to roll that out to the UK and the rest of EMEA where we do with our clients. So for us at the moment, it's definitely something we like to talk about as we're doing now, and I'm trying to keep across, but it's definitely a watch and see on how we can actually turn all these insights and stats into actionable activation plans.
No, that's great. So there's another theme that we kind of touched upon, but we haven't really gone into a lot of detail, which I definitely want to share with the audience. So it's currently being called live commerce. Now, for those who are not familiar with it, it's live commerce kind of kicked off in China. So this is where your influencers, or leaders of opinion as they are called in China now, basically use a platform like Twitch or a TikTok to then be able to basically sponsor by brands or basically sell to their audiences, but I'm talking millions and millions. So at the moment they're currently accounting for 78% of the total e-commerce in China, which is huge if you think about it. It's massive. So it hasn't quite picked up off to that extent here in the UK or in Europe yet, but from what we've learned from the trends is that it kind of kicks off in China and then it usually comes up to us within like 12 to 18 months. So putting it into our panel, what do you guys kind of think on this trend? Do you think it's going to pick up? How do you think we can capitalize on this?
Yeah, I can take this one. Yeah, I think we're always a bit behind to, that market here in the West. I think there are examples of brands who are doing it really well. Thinking about Charlotte Tilbury, for example, with her live YouTube shopping, hugely successful, with her tutorials, really creating that urgency. And I think what's key with her is she's so good at creating that community feel, like everybody's there, part of something, getting that first access. I think what's also crucial is obviously in China, the integration of the apps is so much better than some of the ones we have here. So until that sort of happens, I think it'll be a lot slower on this part of the world.
No, I agree. So for those who are not familiar with the China kind of like industry or setup, so they've got one big company called Baidu, and Baidu is effectively a search engine to begin with, and then they've kind of operated into kind of like banking. That's pretty much used Baidu for everything in China, and that's one of the reasons why it's become so influential over there. Now, I'll pass it over to one of the other panelists because I definitely want to get another opinion on
still,
on China or on live commerce in general.
Well, I think in general, like the trends from China or Asia are massively important because we are seeing a completely different usage because platforms are widely integrated to cover a multitude of functions. So we see that the wide population, for instance, in China is heavily engaged on live streaming, as you mentioned, and that's something that I think we'll see more and more. Again, if we see all of the trends that, we started talking about short-form videos now, there's a lot talking about a long-form video. If we think about even TikTok, this year testing 60-minute video. I mean, there's a stronger interest in longer form live streaming and all of this. And it doesn't surprise us if we consider that also, all of the digital reports are like counting how much of all of this search and usage is coming from, for instance, YouTube or other purely video platforms, as I said, but again, TikTok, again, after that, on the weekly usage, even of news consumption. So that's very true for news, but that's also very true for products. So I think it's something that we'll have to consider so much in every single strategy that you create. And at the same time, I think one other thing that we will need to consider as a very big trend is, again, as I mentioned, fragmentation, and how this heavily impacts the way that product or information is searched. So that also interrupts pretty much the customer journey because you could have someone coming from a platform and then asking you a question on another different platform, or maybe replying on somewhere else. So you need to really be able to track where the interactions are coming from, what they are listening to, what type of content. So make sure whatever you do, you start also very much from the organic, from the content, from the quality, from the creativity, from the I would say wide experience that your brand brings in, because in all of this misinformation world where that really is widely happening as we speak. We'll think about examples on X every day, or everywhere else actually, even Meta and the Russia outlets just very recent news. All of this as a play and something that we should consider when creating any strategy. And I think it's very, very important that expertise still keeps playing a very wide role.
No, that's right. No, thanks a lot, Sophie and Roberta. I guess, obviously, we're kind of finishing up now. So I know everyone's kind of been planning for 2025. So we're not going to leave the audience without, these key kind of trends. So what are your top 3 trends for 2024, 2025? So people can plan around them.
Cool. Yeah, happy to kick things off. So I'll go with 2. We'll drill it down a little bit. So the first one, I think I mentioned one of my answers a little bit earlier, but it's going to be the continued, what I'm branding, the continued homogenization of social. So what I mean by that is the continued integration and rollout of TikTok out of phone, so social branching out into these other channels. X are looking at TV integrations. Like I said, TikTok with out of home, social search is something we've touched on as well. So I think from a media, a buying and activation point of view, we're going to look to see that continue and grow and develop and become more actionable for us. And the second one from my side is what I'm calling, sustainable results. So there's been a big focus at the moment on the role of advertising and how the role of Adland and what it can do to influence and drive change and help us all towards net zero and all the climate targets. We're also seeing a lot of our clients obviously have to build out their own charters and think about the role that they can play as well. So I think next year we're going to see more of a focus on this. We're going to see more rollouts of what I'm calling responsible media frameworks. We're going to be looking at not just effective, efficient results, but what are the most sustainable results as well. I think we're going to be, in the social space, we're going to see that driven by partners like Scope 3, which are now starting to integrate with Snapchat. And what they allow us to do is focus on carbon output, etc. So I expect to see that grow, and as it should, because I think we all have a role to play in doing our bit, and to, not to sound too dramatic or over the top, but help save the world.
Nice.
Well, I think we said already quite many things: integration, fragmentation, AI, social search. But I think it's going to be very relevant also the way AI will be regulated more and more. In Europe, we've seen quite an innovative, the EU AI Act. It's been like one of the first kind of a very, very big model of trying to start regulating AI and everything that entails. We'll talking about a lot this month. The same happening in the US with California AI Act. That's not just for California, but just because California is a very, very, of course, big hub for all of the big tech in the US, but that's also will have an impact on the US itself. And if you think about it, it's gonna create a lot more of a, I would say, global integration when we think about US having possibly a California Act, EU having EU Act, China having its own regulations, making it also quite more seamlessly easy for all of this to have somehow a similar agenda. Then we're going to see a lot of differences, because I think regulation is at the very start. And at the same time, another big thing that we'll see, understanding, is how to manage the balance, and that's been discussed a lot these days in Europe, between regulation and not stopping innovation, because of course we need to regulate, but we don't need to, I mean, laws, as we know, take more time than innovation. So how can we innovate quickly? Because otherwise we don't innovate, we die. At the same time, we need to regulate because it's something that cannot be underestimated. So I think that's going to be like a very massive
A lot of changes there on that front. Yeah, thanks. And Sophie, to wrap up.
Well, it's not great going last because I feel like we've already heard all these great points. I think just breaking down simply, I think people are shopping differently on social media. I think they're searching for things differently. I think they're really looking to find meaningful, authentic content that they can relate to from a peer. And I think that's only going to increase this coming year.
No, that's great. Cool. Well, thank you very much, panelists. Really appreciate your time. And thank you for the audience. I appreciate your time, guys. Thank you.